Hey everybody, Nick here, and today I've got a disassembly and maintenance video for you on this little guy here, the, well, biggish guy, the Benchmade 940 Rift. So I'm sorry, not 940, this is the 950. But it's made by the same designer as the 940. So this knife is interesting, this particular one, in that it is very, very, very overly tight. You know, the pivot action is very stick slip, stick slip, stick slip, and I'm just not a big fan of it. And the owner, who sent this along as a loan, has said basically that he's just not sure what the how to get it in adjustment, and so I'm going to give a crack at it here. We're going to learn as we go. So I'm going to go ahead and take it apart, as you probably might expect. Let's see here. Yep, that's the right bit for the pivot, so that'll be a Torx T10. Go ahead and pop this open. So, first things first, your pivot is out. I was hoping I'd be able to just push that through, but alas, I am not. That's okay. So now what I'm going to do is pull these three other screws here. Let's see what bit that's going to be. I'm thinking maybe T6. Yeah, T6. Okay. Take my T6 bit. Pull this out. This knife is interesting in that in addition to the G10 on the outside here, it does have full liners, which is nice. A lot of the Benchmade access locks have the skeletonized partial interior liners, but this one's full. And that's always a beautiful thing. At least it sure is regularly so. Pop that open. Okay, so at this point the G10 is starting to wiggle off. That's that. That's removed, and it looks like any other damned access lock on the inside here. Got the internal liners and everything. So, what I'm going to try and do here is just pop the pivot on out. There we go. And that will allow me to safely, and at my own pace, remove the blade. Oh, boy, is that grimy. No wonder. Okay. Well, that's okay. That's why I'm here. Then on the other side here, I should probably take it the whole... There's always a temptation with the access locks to leave everything sort of intact, in situ, and just slide the blade back in between. But, you know, both for educational reasons and because I'm trying to get this guy in better shape, I'm going to go ahead and do the whole thing. One other thing to note here is that in order to disassemble this guy, you need to take off both sides of the G10 because you need to be able to slide the access lock down into this little pit to pop out, and the G10 is preventing that on this side. So, such is life. Pull out the G10 here, and here. There we go. And here. And it looks like, can confirm this in just a second. Yeah, unfortunately, hopefully you can see that the pivot, not the pivot, the clip screws go right on through the G10 into the liner. So in order to take this guy apart, the clip screws need to be pulled as well. And I'm going to set the clip screws slightly aside here. It looks like they're the same size and shape as the other ones, but, you know, no, they may be a little longer, actually. So I'm going to leave the clip screws off in this corner someplace. Alrighty. And there we go. So now both of the G10 scales are removed. And what I'm going to go ahead and do is pop off the Omega springs on both sides here. That, and there we go. We are de-Omega'd. Now, with this, I can pop this guy through here, being very careful with the Omega springs here. You do not want to put a whole lot of force on those, because it is possible and easy to break them. Benchmade will usually send new ones when they do break, but it's still something I'd rather not do. And there we go, case closed. Okay, what do we got in here? Well, we've got a clear amount of wear here, and the wear is a little asymmetrical on the DLC here, which is making me wonder whether things might be a little, well, it's a Benchmade, things are a little out of tolerance, but nonetheless. So I want to take a look here. What I'm going to do in terms of cleanup is I'm going to start off just by hitting these guys with some Simple Green. Actually, I'm going to move the hardware slightly out of the way here. And then set this down and spray against it. Perfect. Right now I'm doing the outside of the liner, but the inside will be next. This is like a, almost like a blued metal sort of affair. So you know what? I'm gonna go on ahead and actually wash these two pots off with some actual water. This doesn't seem to be doing super well. It's either really dirty or really weird. And so I'm going to go ahead and hit these three pots with some water, and I will be back with you in just 1 second. And we're back. So literally all I did is took these over to the sink, took some dish soap, and gave them a nice thorough wash in here. And, you know, it really does knock down on a lot of crud, especially when you've got grease or something like that. And, you know, you just don't want to be trying to go at that with just paper towels and some kind of a small cleanser. So, you know, not something I do all the time, but when I do it, it's very necessary. One thing I did notice, if you look right in here, this is the blade home there, and, you know, it's hard to get at that with water, and so I'm just going to try and grab the last of this junk out of there, which will make it a little bit easier for the knife to, let's see, that'll be when it locks shut. Yeah. There we go. So that's good and cleaned out. Excellent. That alone will help the action a little bit. And just make sure this back surface is very clean. Beautiful. All right. So the knife is now actually pretty well cleaned out. One other thing I notice here looking at this knife is that this is running really dry. You know, people vary in terms of their desires for lubrication on a knife. I tend to run knives fairly wet, but I also like maintenance, so a little bit of dust collection is not the end of the world. If you're working in a sawmill, that's a pretty good reason to run your knife dry. So something to keep that in mind. Okay, anything else I gotta do here? No, not really. So next step is gonna be to do a little bit of preventive maintenance. Gonna take a little bit of my the Frog Lube CLP here, and gonna go ahead and rub down these scales with them. Partly because it, you know, this blued metal really shouldn't have any rust issue, but, you know, if I'm here and the Frog Lube is inexpensive, which it is, I might as well. So there is that. Nice and lubed up, and looks much more attractive on the inside too. It's completely shallow, but you know, why not, right? Alrighty. These are now got a nice thorough coating of your Frog Lube. Keep everything a little bit more protected for the foreseeable future, and I'm just going to wipe a little bit. Remove the excess. Not that there's a whole lot of excess going on there. There are many places of excess in my life, but this right now is not among them. There we go. Perfect. And, well, I still have a little bit on my hand. You got to be a little more careful with the tang here, but I'm going to go ahead and throw a little bit more Frog Lube right on in here, because this is an area that doesn't get wiped off as easily and can rust up if you're not very careful about it. Although it's 154 cm is the steel here, so there's not really a whole lot of cause for concern regarding the rust situation. Beautiful. This blade is a little odd in that, and maybe it's just the effect of the machining, but it almost looks like it's painted, like they've done a really consistent finish on this guy. Interesting. Okay, so let's go on ahead and start the reassembly process with a couple of provisos. So one thing I am going to do here, because these washers look like they got some mileage on them, and they also don't look terribly flat. So I'm going to go ahead and polish the washers. So, oh, come on now. I'm fishing around in my knife drawer. Perfect. This is a 1 micron stropping compound sort of thing. And so I'm just going to put a little tiny bit here onto this little leather strop. And what I'm going to do is just strop these washers. And all that's doing is putting a little bit more of a polish on them, getting rid of any burrs, things like that. A little of this goes the long way. But you're just smoothing the high surfaces of the washer. In this case, you can see by looking at the washer that the high surface is universally the edge of it, which is fine, but it's interesting. Huh. All right, now we'll switch to the other side, which should show the stropping in the middle if life is symmetrical and makes sense. That's a more uniform distribution. Sometimes, if I get bold, I will try and double barrel. These washers are a little too thin for that to really work out, but that's okay. Let's finish up on this guy. Just walk him around in a little circle here. This is just a little piece of conditioned leather. If by conditioned, I mean I've done a whole lot of stropping with it. It's a great thing to have in your little repair kit, because it's also good for polishing little parts, like the button at the edge of the thigh lock. It's a great example of a time when you might want something like this to do some polishing. Wow. I gotta say, I'm not so impressed with the flatness of these ear washers. But at the very least, the points of contact will be a little easier, and actually that explains why, if you look at the blade of the knife here, there is only a little track where the washers sit on the outside here, where those edges contact the blade. And that's more or less the case on this side, although a little less so. So that's pretty interesting, and that's probably why the action isn't really stellar on this guy. The washers aren't so great either. But okay, at the very least, what I've now done is improved them significantly. So there's that. And right now I'm just going to wipe these guys off. Make sure none of the stropping compound goes into the knife itself. Wouldn't be the end of the world, but it is something I want to watch out for. Only insert the grit you plan to. Okay then. So, on scales like this, you always have a handy side, to which side goes on the inside, because that's where the washer has worn everything away. So the knife will go back together in such a way. Alrighty, let's start reassembling this little guy. So lately I've been having better luck, to the extent you can ever have good luck with an axis lock reassembly. A lot of it is, unfortunately, just kind of a struggle. But lately I've been having better luck by assembling the liner section first, and then slipping the washers in there, either with the blade or on. And in fact, I'm going to try something a little fancy here. Doesn't always work out for me, but you'll see the trick. Maybe you'll be better at it than I am. That'd be nice for you. So what I'm going to go ahead and do here is assemble this little packet here. Has everything. And you know, what I'm going to do just for a moment, this is probably overkill. little bugger. What I'm going to do is just screw one of these screws in here real quick. I'll need to take it out before I go much further. Wow. But the idea will be that that will kind of stabilize this little packet together. Keep the back spaces from falling out randomly. Oh, you little bastard. I'm going to set this down and try a different tack. Really? So generally I don't do magnetic bit drivers, just because they tend to, especially when you're working with things like watches. There we go. Yeah, now this is a lot more stabilized. So, but there's a risk that you're going to magnetize whatever it is you're working on, and that's not always something you really want in life. Okay, now I'm going to align the omega spring in such a way that it'll pop through here. And I have already now made sure that the springs are in the proper orientation so that they actually, you know, do their jobs, which is good. I'm going to use my little spring bar tool / oiler to pop the spring in. This is a handy little beast. Best like $3 I ever spent. So there we go. Now the axis lock section is reassembled, and we can pop the blade in. So what I'm going to go ahead and do here is, for lubrication, here we go. Nano oil as always. So what I'm doing right now is I'm going to apply the nano oil to where the washers sit on the inside here. And unfortunately I can't show this on camera. Well, maybe I can. But I'm just applying a nice layer of the nano oil there on the inside on that side, and then now I'm going to do it on the other side as well. So that way, once I pop the blade in there, everything will be lubricated. Now I'm going to apply some nano oil to the blade itself. Bam, bam. Use that to adhere the washers. My God, this might be the first time I actually, you know, look like a decent human being in reassembling an axis lock knife. Most of the time, these kind of kick my ass, I'll be honest with you. So now, the step... Oh, you bugger. So the axis lock just popped down into its little gap here. But I should be okay. Yeah, there we go. Now the next step is going to be to very carefully slide the blade on in there. And so, of course, my washers went out of alignment, but that's okay. What I'm going to try and do is get them back into alignment. On both sides. There we go. And now I've just kind of dropped... Oh, little bugger. Now I'm just going to drop my little oiler here into the pivot hole to keep everything assembled for the moment. Next step is going to be to figure out which of these scales I want to put on first. Right side clip, yeah. And unfortunately I have inserted my oiler in the wrong direction, but that's okay. Flip it on around here. And again, that's just trying to make sure that everything doesn't fall out. Drop that onto there. Ah. Poorly done there, Nick. It's real easy when it looks like a knife to handle it like a fully assembled knife, when it secretly is not. And we got ourselves a bit of an issue. Oh no, we're okay. I thought the wash had slipped out there. See, this is what happens when I make a comment like, I think I'm going to look good putting this one together. Because, yeah, now I don't. So I'm going to lube up the pivot here. Come on now. My nano oil's getting a little cloggy. I'm going gonna slide it onto the end of this here. Now, this is D-shaped, and the flat part goes on the top. And I'm just gonna slowly try and slide this through. Come on now. Okay, so now we are through the G10. And we need to get in through the liner. Come on now. There we go, we are in through the liner. Now, I'm gonna push my luck a little bit here. Make it just gotten past the washer. That'd be nice. Okay, now unfortunately on an axis lock knife, it's usually best to move the axis lock back as you're doing this so that the blade can fall fully into position. That's gonna require maybe 5 or 6 hands in order to do properly. Oh yeah, unless you're this goddamn good. So now I have popped that through, and the blade is resting on the pivot. Oh, say it's so. Yes, indeed. That is quite nearly in. Pop the axis lock back, and it's assembled. Holy crap, guys. It's almost like I'm getting better at this or something. Actually, while this is reassembled, I'm going to go ahead and stabilize the scale on the back side here. And take out my Loctite. Beautiful. Go ahead, wipe it around in there. In there. A little more than that. In there. And a little bit up in there. Beautiful. Now, I'm going to drop some pivot screw, or not pivot screws, some scale screws in there. And this will just help to stabilize the other half of the knife. You don't want to torque everything down yet, but that one's not going to go all the way in because the other one is screwed too far in, because I was using it to secure everything else. This one's going to go in just fine. As is this little guy here. This is a good time, as you're at this stage in your reassembly, to think about, ask yourself a very important question, which is, Nick, have you put all the backspacers back into the knife? Right now the answer is yes. In some prior knives, the answer has not been. This is a dangerous moment, because right now the only thing holding this scale packet together is my fingers. So if you forget about that for just 1 second, you will find yourself in a world of hurt reassembling everything. If washers start coming out, or God help you, the pivot screw falls out. Okay. Now I really want that to stay steady. I'm gonna go ahead and Loctite some things up here. I'm gonna go ahead and hit the pivot screw. Being generous there. Inside of there. So, people who are watching this video, for the love of God, how can I do better at a dispenser for Loctite than this? I've tried to find one of these sorts of things with Loctite in it, but doesn't happen. And I need very small quantities in a controlled manner, and that just doesn't seem to be something that the world is willing to provide for me. Any thoughts? If so, please leave them in the comments. Hot damn, this is going really well. Well, we'll see what the action looks like. That's going to be the trick here. It could, though, just be that this guy was running really dry, and as a result, the action just wasn't doing what it needed to. And now that I've dampened it up a little bit, got everything back in the proper positioning, everything will go together like a symphony of freaking angels. But, you know, who knows? Well, I will in like 2 minutes. Okay, so I have now tightened this way too much. So I'm going to go ahead and back that off. The goal, and actually I'm going to reattach the handle real quick. The clip, that is, just so that I have a better sense of it in the hand as I'm doing my testing. Go back to my T6 bit and use the 3 longer screws that I set aside earlier. Oh, come on. There we go. Just drop that in far enough to thread. Use the next one to confirm the positioning. And drop the final one in there. Okay, so at the moment, amazingly, the blade is centered. Holy crap! Okay, so the action is really good right now, but I got a little bit of side-to-side play, which means I need to tweak this by the minutest amount. I mean, seriously, look at the top of this driver here. That's the amount I just tweaked it. And now, a little too much. Back it off. Tiny bit here. Little tiny bit of blade play. But the action on it right now is just stellar. I'm going to give it a... There we go. Micro adjustment. Oh, Benchmade. Come on. So the centering is still okay. At this point, the blade play is completely disappeared, but the action isn't that smooth. One more shot. No blade play. Tiny tweak more. This guy's very bouncy. I believe, there we are. So actually, I'm really pretty impressed at the moment. Both that I was able to do an axis lock reassembly without looking like a jackass for once. It's a nice thing. Good feeling. I could get used to that. But more importantly, that we were actually able to fix, or at least vastly improve, the issues that the viewer was having there. And I think probably what was going on there is that the knife was running pretty dry. And so it hadn't been assembled in a while there, and it's pretty dirty, and getting this tension right is really tough. It's not easy. And so, yeah, now we have a Rift that is in actually pretty damn good condition. So I can EDC this one for a little while, throw up a review, and be on the lookout for that. But in the meantime, I hope you enjoyed this disassembly video, that you have equivalently good luck with your Rift, and that next time you disassemble an axis lock, you don't feel like a jackass either. Have yourselves a wonderful rest of your day.